All right, let's dive right into this explainer. You know that feeling when you're completely burned out? You're probably staring at an overflowing inbox, glaring at a double-booked calendar, and assuming the problem is just the sheer volume of tasks on your plate. But some absolutely fascinating research from the Takasugi Research Institute, which we're going to break down today, suggests that we have been misdiagnosing workplace stress entirely. So is your workload actually the problem? We usually just blame the huge volume of work for our stress, right? We figure, hey, if I just get a better time management app, or maybe work a few extra hours on the weekend to clear things out, the anxiety will just magically disappear. Well, we need to completely reframe that to find the real culprit. Because it turns out the work itself is rarely what breaks us down. Think about the classic complaint we all use. I just have way too much to do. That's the myth. The reality the Institute uncovered goes so much deeper. The real driver of stress isn't necessarily the task itself. It's actually the feeling of existential isolation. It's facing a challenge without human connection. Your stress literally skyrockets when your internal monologue shifts to, I feel like I must handle this difficult situation entirely alone, or there's absolutely zero room for me to fail here. And when we feel totally alone with a heavy problem, our brains do something that's biologically natural but incredibly dangerous in a modern workplace. The mind just narrows. This leads to a dangerous psychological state they call scenario foreclosure. It basically happens when your mind prematurely closes down possible futures under pressure. We falsely start to believe there is no way out. We catastrophize, right? We start thinking, man, if this project fails, my entire career is over and I'll be living in a van. Our options literally become invisible to us. Which brings us to a really brilliant quote from the research. Stress is not only about workload, it is also about how widely or narrowly a person can see future possibilities under pressure. Think about that for a second. Stress is actually a shrinking of your psychological horizon. It turns an ordinary solvable daily challenge into an existential threat, simply because you've lost the ability to see alternative paths forward. You see, that feeling of isolation breeds this rigid, panicked state called must thinking. Must thinking sounds super tight and absolute. It's, I must not fail, they must approve of me, I must handle this all by myself. It treats one specific outcome as absolute life or death. But healthy human connection actually preserves flexible, resilient want thinking. Want thinking sounds open and calm. It's, I want to succeed, and hey, even if it's hard, I can adjust, I can ask for help, and I can learn. Real human connection literally keeps our thinking flexible. Now, modern organizations absolutely love efficiency. We shorten meetings, we automate emails, we optimize our workflows to reduce task friction, and that's all great. But human connection is what reduces psychological friction. Stripping away that connection makes the whole system mentally fragile. So a highly efficient but relationally thin organization might look super productive on paper, but the second it's put under pressure, it completely loses its resilience. So let's zoom out a bit from the individual and look at the macro level. What kind of culture are you actually working in? Because the environment where you spend 40 to 60 hours a week directly dictates how much stress you internalize and whether your mind is forced into that dangerous state of scenario foreclosure. To really diagnose your workplace, we need to look at two vital dimensions. They overlap, sure, but they are completely distinct. First up is psychological safety. This is the freedom to pitch a totally wild idea or admit a mistake without the fear of getting humiliated in the team's Slack channel. It protects your voice. Second is human connection. This is about feeling meaningfully seen, understood, and supported. It protects your sense of belonging. You have to understand both of these to truly evaluate your team's culture. Now, what's super fascinating is what happens when you map these two dimensions against each other. High and low psychological safety against high and low human connection. It reveals four totally distinct corporate cultures: resilient learning, professional candor, warm conformity, and defensive isolation. Let's break down what it actually feels like to work in each of these environments. Let's start with the best case scenario, a resilient learning culture. Both dimensions are high here. You've got candor and you've got care. People speak honestly and they actually ask for help. It's incredibly healthy. But then look at professional candor. Over here, you get great problem solving. People safely debate and challenge ideas, but human connection is low. Over time, that leaves you emotionally drained because while your intellect is getting a great workout, your relational nourishment is completely missing. But the real traps, those happen the second safety drops. Take warm conformity. It looks super friendly on the surface. Plenty of forced pizza parties and team building, but it demands harmony at the absolute expense of the truth. You belong, but you better not challenge the group. It's suffocating. And finally, defensive isolation. This is the most damaging. low safety, low connection. You can't speak honestly, you aren't supported, and it leaves you entirely alone and guarded, spending all of your energy just protecting yourself. If you ever find yourself stuck in one of those toxic, low-safety environments, your number one survival goal is to preserve what the Institute calls your option space. This is the entire range of responses, interpretations, relationships, and possible futures that remains psychologically available to you. Remember, toxic stress shrinks your option space. Your first job isn't to heroically fix a broken company. Honestly, leave that to the consultants. Your first job is to keep your own option space wide open. There's a crucial point here, and it's perfectly captured by this idea. Do not let the organization's narrowness become your inner narrowness. You have to consciously protect your mind from shrinking to match a broken environment. Because trust me, it is incredibly easy to internalize a toxic culture and start believing that your boss's dysfunction is actually your own personal failure. So, how do we actually survive these places without burning out entirely? Well, we need a tactical playbook. We are talking about actively avoiding the trap of taking the stress personally, intentionally building internal micro-connections, cultivating external connections, and learning how to communicate strategically just to protect yourself. One absolutely fantastic tool here is the micro-connection. Listen, you do not need deep emotional vulnerability at work. In fact, in a low-safety environment, deep vulnerability is a massive risk. Instead, you want to cultivate micro-connections with calm colleagues. These are just small, simple moments of respectful contact. Just saying, hey, that was really helpful, or I appreciated your point in that meeting. And crucially, keep your heavy emotional oxygen tanks, your real friends, your partner, your therapist, entirely outside the walls of the organization. To stop bleeding emotional energy, you have to triage your workplace stressors into 3 clear zones of control. Step 1, manage the controllable. That's things like your own preparation and setting your boundaries. Step 2, navigate the influenceable. This is how you frame your concerns or build trust with peers. And step 3, detach entirely from the non-controllable. You cannot control senior leadership's weird, mysterious reorgs or a toxic coworker's hidden agenda. So stop trying. Reclaim that wasted energy. And when all that ambiguity starts causing panic, combat it by just calmly documenting reality. Now, I'm not talking about being paranoid or sending passive-aggressive per my last email messages to your team. It's about anchoring yourself in the facts. Confirm understandings, state the current next steps, note risks objectively, and clarify your priorities in writing. Grounding yourself like this replaces vague, spinning fears with concrete, manageable facts. You also have to deliberately map out multiple future scenarios for yourself. Even if you decide to stay, you need to remember that staying is an active choice. Map out your paths. Maybe you stay and adapt for now. Maybe you aim to transfer internally. Or maybe you quietly start building external options so you can leave later. Just knowing that you have choices prevents total psychological foreclosure. It turns you from a trapped victim into an active, empowered strategist. Moving right along to Section 3, the leadership mandate, focusing on resilience architecture. Now, if you're actually leading a team, providing this connection and safety isn't just some nice-to-have employee wellness perk. It is about organizational survival. And it starts with one core truth. A legible leader reduces unnecessary threat. Leaders absolutely must be legible. That means understandable, fair, and consistent. Because if you are unpredictable or opaque, ambiguity forces your employees to burn precious cognitive bandwidth just guessing what the boss really means, instead of actually solving the business problems. Because when leaders fail to provide that basic safety and connection, the whole organization starts to suffer from scenario foreclosure. It literally blinds itself to critical risks. Problems stay hidden in the shadows. Bad news gets totally sugar-coated before it ever reaches the top. Weak signals in the market are completely ignored, and group narratives just harden into pure delusion. The organization literally loses the intelligence of its own people. So fostering safety is definitely not just an HR buzzword, and it's not just about being nice. As the research bluntly states, that is not soft management, that is survival architecture. It is the core architecture of a smart, highly adaptive business that can actually process the truth and survive in a really complex world. I want to leave you with a brutally honest question to reflect on, whether you're the CEO or a brand new team member. Ask yourself, does your team become more open or more guarded when you enter the conversation? It's a really tough mirror to look into, but it is absolutely essential to ensure you are keeping the future open for those around you. That wraps up our explainer for today. Make sure to protect your option space and keep those futures open.